where you finish, but at any one time you can only see as far as your headlight beams. And in my case, those headlight beams are like two arthritic glowworms strapped on. I can see like an inch in front of me. I don't even know what the next sentence is going to be. And yet when I struggle to the end of the novel, that is it. It's one draft, I never rewrite. That is the story, because I have this strange thing in my head that even though I know it's made up, I'm a perfectly rational and sane person. I know it's fiction. I know it didn't really happen, but it is kind of like it did really happen. That is what happened. And if to change it afterward seems to me dishonest. It's like changing your own biography. It's like saying, I didn't do that bad thing. So I write the one draft and that is it. And the editors often say, would it be better if this happened after that? And I say, yeah, probably, but it didn't.
The world of writing is divided into two schools called pantsers and plotters. Pants as in seat of the pants, and then plotters as in the organizers. And it was great. And I give Lee credit. Actually, he's the gentleman I address in my courses when I tell my students there is no right way to do this. The right way is your way to do it. And Flaubert said, books are not made the way babies are made. They're made the way pyramids are made. I said that once, and I was looking down the audience, and there was a mother there with her little girl. The mother looking mortified, and this 10-year-old little girl saying, made the way babies are made. And she looked up at the mother. But then George R.R. Martin said, who I think approaches books the way you do, said, I don't know, I plant a seed and I nurture it, but it grows where it's going to grow. And never the twain shall meet, but somehow the books get done.
I just want to ask, because we know a lot more about your working methods now, Lee, because there was a book published called Reacher Said Nothing. Has anyone read this book? By Andy Martin, who followed you around for a year, talked to you about your writing process, and often sat behind you while you were writing. My first question, well, I'll ask Jeff first. I mean, would you ever do a book like that? Do you like the idea of somebody looking over your shoulder as you're writing?
It would never, ever happen. Does that answer your question? I get incensed when my dog looks at my computer. What have I done wrong, Fido? Oh my God.
So how was it for you, Lee?
Well, it was my 20th book, and it seemed somewhat appropriate to do something different or special for the 20th book. And Andy he made the request days before, maybe like 2 days before I was due to start. So I had no time really to think about it. So I just said yeah, and it was very awkward at first, very unnatural thing to do. In the end, I don't know whether it was just habituation or Stockholm syndrome or something, that I ended up quite enjoying it, because we do obsess over, I mean, Jeff may do it in a subsequent revision, I do it as I go along, but you obsess which word, where does the comma go, why is that word uglier than this other word, why is it less mellifluous or whatever, and you don't expect people to understand that. It's a weird obsession that you feel is your own thing. And to have somebody who kind of understood that was quite reassuring in the end.
Yeah, and that really comes across in the book with that, the detail of how much you agonize over the words as you go along.
Yeah, because again, thinking about how are these books consumed, people have got a lot of other things to do, and you've got to help them in a sense. In other words, don't give them something that is difficult to read. What I try and do, without making it obtrusive at all, it has to be completely invisible. But what I try and do is have the rhythm of each sentence constantly sort of tumbling forward. And, Jeff is actually a musician as well as everything else, and we all aspire to be musicians. All writers love music, because I think there is a very strong connection between writing and music. It's an art form that has a time base. It starts somewhere, it travels for some hours and finishes somewhere else. And the rhythm of it is incredibly important. So I put a lot of effort into making sure each sentence kind of pushes forward, and it helps people through the book. And one of the greatest compliments you get when you are a mass market writer, people that are really not very good readers, people that are not very habitual readers, the best compliment you get is, and I've had it many times, somebody comes up to me and says, I loved your book, I finished it. which to them is a huge boost for their self-esteem, for their how they feel. They've had a complete experience. They haven't labored over it. And that is a really, really nice thing, and I'm aware I'm trying to do that, and so I'm really, really pleased when it succeeds. In fact, I had one woman who she was dyslexic, severely dyslexic, really couldn't read, but she was also terrified of flying, and she had a job for the U.S. Tennis Association that made her fly all the time. And so what she did to get over her fear of flying is she would get a book. And she was so struggling to read it, it would knock her out, and she would sleep for the whole flight. But one time she got one of my books, and she actually read it and finished it, and was so pleased and so happy about it. And so she then read all the books, and now she sends me tickets every year for the U.S. Open, which I don't like tennis, so I always give them away to somebody, which is like a double whammy, because now somebody else owes me a favor.
I don't know if this has ever happened to you, Lee, but I think I was in New Zealand on book tour, and a young man about 17 or so came up to me very shyly with his mom and dad behind him and said, "Mr. Deaver, I liked your presentation, but would you sign a few books for me?" And I said, "I'd be delighted to." And so he reached into the bag he brought, and he put down a John Grisham, a Stephen King, and a D.S. And, we all chuckled about that. He was kind of blushing, and his dad came up and said, "Well, Mr. Deaver, there's method to this madness. Our son had not read a book outside of school, and we suspect he had not read a book inside of school ever until I gave him a copy of The Bone Collector. And he realized that reading could actually be, dare we say, fun. And those were the first 3 books he had read after The Bone Collector. And, don't you agree, once somebody gets hooked on the magic of books, they're hooked forever. I feel, I'm not going to lecture, but I am a little bit. A book, well, let me say reading, and whether you're listening to the book or reading it on paper or electronic screen, is the highest emotional experience in the creative arts that you can have. Why? Because we are partners with the author. We envision the scenes. We hear the sounds, we smell the smells that the author has put in. We see a movie, I love Breaking Bad, I love your House of Cards, I didn't like ours so much, I like your Office, I didn't like our Office so much, the Ricky Gervais, Stephen Merchant show, and the Ian Richardson wonderful House of Cards. Those were absolutely brilliant. I own them. I'll go back and see them again, but at the end of the day, that was kind of somebody else's vision. But the books I read, that's my vision as well as the author's. So if I can turn people onto reading, I've done something good, I think.
This book, Reacher Said Nothing by Andy Martin, he quotes a lot of the things you say, writing advice, and it made me wonder if one day, question for both of you, maybe if you would consider ever writing a book like Stephen King's on writing about actually how to write.
I am right now.
You are?
Yeah.
And what is it? Like a manual? Or?
Well, what I do is, I've done a lot of, it is a very practical manual. I've done a lot of, I've written many novels, poems, short stories, songs, and things like that. But I've never done much plagiarism. So what I'm doing in this is extracting quotations from various authors, and with attribution, of course, and then using that as a springboard, such as the quotes I mentioned before. And in fact, I have one from you, and I hope I'll get permission. I have to have a release here if you could sign it. Did you indeed say this? Don't get it right, get it written?
Yeah.
And I think that is brilliant. I think that's one of the best quotations I've ever heard. And I'm working on it leisurely. I have to, pay the rent. It's not going to get my dog's food and pay the mortgage, but I am working on it leisurely.
I think really all you can do is, I love Stephen King's book, because I really like Stephen King, really nice guy, as well as, legendary writing talent, but a terrific man. And I loved his book, but it's essentially just a personal memoir, because as we said before, for every 10 writers, there are 15 ways of doing it. And so he's describing his way, which is dramatically different from my way. But he did say one thing which chimes in with what Jeff said. He said his working day is 12 hours. 6 hours of writing and 6 hours of reading. And he has never forgotten it's about reading, reading, reading. And if you see him, he is always reading. In fact, inadvertently, I got my first kind of big break in America because of him, accidentally. There was a baseball game, the Yankees at the Red Sox in Boston. And Stephen, despite being a lovely guy in every other way, is a Red Sox fan.
Oh dear.
So they were, the game is covered on television, and the early innings are tense.